welcome back to Mads World. I'm your host Mads, and I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. If you have, please remember to leave me a review, rate the show, and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. This week I am joined by author and Vogue columnist Annie Lord. Annie has written for a number of publications including Vice, The Sunday Times, The Independent, and she now has a dating column in Vogue, which is very exciting. Annie joins me in this episode to speak all about her brilliant new book, Notes on Heartbreak, which I fucking adored and chewed through cover to cover. The book is a fierce, honest, and raw love story told in reverse, beginning with a devastating and unexpected breakup. As Annie goes through the rollercoaster of a broken heart, her beautiful memoir revisits the past, from the moment she first fell in love, the esoteric jokes and deep tangle of lives in a long-term relationship, to the months that saw the gradual breakdown of a 5-year-long bond. I have to say, I cried a few times reading it, both happy and sad tears. It's a stunning exploration of love and heartbreak, and the book is so much more than one about a singular breakup. It is an unflinchingly honest and candidly written story of the simultaneous joy and pain of being in love. If you've ever been through a breakup, this one's for you. A book about the best and worst of love, the euphoric and the painful, the beautiful and the messy. I hope you enjoy our chat because I loved it. Hello, Annie.
Hello, thank you for having me. I've got a bit of a cold, so my voice is like 10 decibels lower than normal, but that probably makes it sound a bit nicer than it usually does.
I do love that. It makes it interesting for a podcast to have someone with a husky voice.
Yeah, and I suppose like there's a slight risk it could just completely disappear halfway through, but
it's going to peter off into nothing. I have just finished reading your book, Notes on Heartbreak, which thank you so much for sending it to me, and I'm super excited for us to get stuck into our chat all about it because it was absolutely brilliant. So
thank you so much.
I want to know first up, what gave you the idea to write Notes on Heartbreak? And the structure of the book is a bit different to a normal love story, so I'm just really interested to know what inspired it and what's inspired the structure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really couldn't have written a book about anything else at that time because I was so consumed by the breakup and that's all I would think about. And yeah, I didn't really do any other work. It just really, you know, those things where you sort of wake up in the middle of the night and you're like scribbling things. And
yes, yeah.
It just completely took me over. So it wasn't, I don't even know if I ever felt like inspired or whatever. It just felt like a bit inevitable. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the structure, like I very much wrote it kind of stream of consciousness sort of way where, you know, it's very notey, but it kind of did come out like that. And obviously there's me in the present processing the breakup and going through all the horrible stuff like getting weird haircuts and like ringing people drunk and being messy and all that stuff. But then, you know, the other part of it sort of drifting back into memories of our relationship from the beginning towards the end. Like that kind of is how you think about breakups and process them when you're going through them. Like you do sort of look back constantly at what it was like at the beginning. And so yeah, obviously like I sort of formalized that structure, but it was kind of the messiness of it is kind of reflective of my messy brain at that time.
I think it's so cool because like you said, you're drawn back to the reality of it when you're going through a breakup and you feel the pain and you're like living in that moment and just feeling like shit, but then your brain is also living in the past because you're trying to remember all the bad stuff to make it easier, but then and then something will remind you of, you know, like a movie will come on or a song will come on and it'll remind you of all the good times as well and you're like, oh, go away. But then you don't want to forget those good times either because there's a part in the book that you speak about when, you know, people are telling you negative things about your ex and you don't want to lean into that because you want it to stay as this like perfect thing that it was at the time.
Yeah, completely. Like one of the things that made me feel most depressed like after the breakup was like speaking to friends and they talk about their exes and be like, oh, they were such a dickhead and da-da-da-da. And it just it made me feel so sad to think that like I was going to get to that point and that it's always like to get over someone, it feels like you do have to get to the point where you're completely sick of them, you hate who they are. And that just made me feel really sad because it's like, you wish it would be so nice if you could have all the good memories and like cherish those and move on at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to do that. It does make it so much easier to just be like, oh, I hate them. Like, yeah, just latch onto the bad stuff in order to heal from it. But
I wonder if when you get to a point, because I think I'm at a point now where I can look back with my ex. I went through a breakup last year and you sort of think of all the things, like you can think of the good things and it's not bad. So I think of things like, oh, because we were housemates in lockdown and we were friends and then fell in love. And so I sort of think like, oh, maybe COVID wasn't so bad because, you know, I had my own little love story. I wasn't really bothered by it. I feel like I can look at that stuff now. Do you think you can look at your experiences now, reflecting on it and having written the book and everything? Is it easier now?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I actually did think that obviously I went through points of like so much anger and really resenting him and like
Mm-hmm.
only thinking of bad stuff.
Mm.
But I think I did really work to not get to that point where I could only get over it by, I think, focusing on the bad. And like I think the book definitely helped with that. Like it was almost like doing therapy or like journaling, like because you know just processing all your feelings and like knowing that that's how you're coping with it. Like how that me writing that down made me realize that was how I was coping with it, and that does just make you less likely to rely on those things. And yeah, like I totally look back with like really fond memories. And like now it's weird because like I am so over the breakup, and like I think now completely see it was like the best decision. But
Yeah.
it's funny now, like I'll still like just, you know, like gets like a weird sick satisfaction over like walking down the street listening to like Lana Del Rey and like thinking of him. And it's now it's like kind of a fun pain because I feel so in control of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like being a bit like nostalgic and silly.
Yeah.
I think I will feel like another stage of grief. I think when I get to the point where I think back and I just like really feel nothing. Do you know what I mean? Which I think probably will only happen once I've like fallen in love again, which hasn't happened yet. But like rumor has it that changes that.
Also, there's a part in the book where your mum speaks about how, you know, she had a romance as someone as a young person and now she just feels nothing. And you think, God, the thought of that is so depressing. But then at the same
Yeah.
time, you can't wait to get to that point because you're like, you'll probably have someone, hopefully, or if that's what you want, and, you know, it won't hurt you anymore. But then you just don't want to forget all the special little things like, you know, rolling around in bed on a Sunday and having it like pissing yourself laughing and stuff. You don't want to forget all that stuff.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I
Mm,
suppose people say your first love, you never fully get over it. It'd be
mm.
so funny, like, if I do, like, oh God, that's so depressing. When I fall in love again, I'll be like having to erase all this evidence on the internet of me being like, yeah, I'll probably never go over him. I'll be
And you've
like,
got this book here on your bedside table, and he's just
yeah,
gonna be like, "What's
ooh.
that? What's that about?" And you'll be like, "I don't
Yeah,
know."
I can tell you it doesn't go down brilliant when you're trying to chat men up.
Oh my God! Well, having a dating podcast doesn't do that well either. So
Yeah,
we're in the
totally.
same boat. So that was sort of some of the best stuff about writing the book. What was the hardest
Mm.
part about writing the book? You know, I mean, the obvious is you're reliving trauma.
Yeah. Well, it's weird actually. Like, I kind of I did write it a lot as it was happening. Like, it does. I think the reason why the book
Really?
feels, yeah, like I think the reason why it feels so raw is because like
Mm.
it really was a lot of it. It was like you know a couple of days ago or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, some bits I had like a lot of time, but in that way it was kind of nice because it was like as I said earlier just like helped me kind of understand my feelings as they were happening.
Yeah.
um I did get concerned sometimes at points where I'd read things from other writers where they spoke about like how they tried to write something about something bad they'd experienced in there, like an editor was like, oh, you're way too close to the text, like it's a bit too emotional, you need more like
Oh.
you need more time to, you know, more space from it so you can look at it in a more like analytical way and
Yeah.
stuff. But like I think it was like I was listening to a podcast that Carmen Maria, you know, who wrote In the Dream House.
Oh no, but I'm going to read it. I love
It
a good
was such a good
recommendation.
book. But I was
Yeah.
reading her because she was talking about and saying that she pitched an article to like the New
Mhm.
Yorker or something, and they were like, "You just feel way too near to this abusive relationship she was in." But then it's like I kind of like that it does feel like that, and I feel like if I was
Yeah.
going through, I mean, you know, different things for different writers, but I like that it feels like that, and I think like if I was going through a breakup, that kind of immediate feeling would help because
Yeah.
I
And
could
it's
almost
hard,
feel
yeah.
sometimes like as I was going through the book, like, oh God, I'm feeling better. I'm healing from this.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's a weird thing though, when I would like go back to write certain sections, it was quite easy, even if there had been a few months from certain bits, to
Yeah.
slip back into exactly how I was feeling in that time, to the
Yeah.
point where it'd be kind of weird where like if I was writing a bit about like me being angry, I would suddenly become like so
Yeah.
enraged when I was writing it, or like you know, jealous, I'd suddenly feel jealous in it. And like if that didn't happen, because it did make it a lot easier to write doing that, I would, it was quite easy to like sort of look at old messages or like pictures and stuff and get back to that
Oh,
point. Like,
yeah.
I think I remember going on like a jog once and like putting Lana Del Rey, Norman fucking Rockwell on because it just took me back to a lot of feelings I was having at one point. And then
Yeah.
it was like I was right back there, and then it did come out again really
Oh
easily.
God. Yeah, there are times and you think that you're completely fine. That's the thing with a breakup. It goes from sad every day to sad every few days, maybe sad once a week, and then the gaps get longer and longer. And then after like, you might be fine for a month and then something will happen, like you'll see them on Instagram or it'll come out of nowhere, or you've had a few drinks and you start looking at old texts and you're like, whoa, this is such a powerful feeling of like shame or anger or just emotion,
Mm,
and you're like, how is this happening? It's been like 3 months since I last gave a shit and it's
yeah.
just back again.
Completely. Like that's something I definitely like I kind of put in the book a bit about that because my friend
Mm,
Diora, I remember being really frustrated because I can't remember now what it was that had sort of set me back. I think it was like seeing him with someone new.
mm,
Seeing him with someone new. And I was like, but it'd been so long. And I
yeah,
was like, I can't believe I feel shit about this again and I'm crying. And
yeah,
then she was just like, progress is it's not like grieving, it's not linear, and like just because you feel bad
yeah,
now, it doesn't mean that you're all the way back. It's just that you're going to have these like ups and downs. It's like a
yep,
squiggle, and
yeah,
then you're sort
squiggle.
of working your way through the squiggle.
Yeah, it's so weird that we're talking about this now because I was at this squat rave in Dalston on Saturday, which was tragic, but it was really fun. And I know that one of my exes from years ago, I've seen his hinge since we've broken up, and it says on his hinge, like, message me or ask me out if you want to go to a squat rave. And then in the smokers, guess who's fucking there on the weekend? And
Oh,
I haven't seen him
were
in
you like,
3
I
years.
manifested it?
Literally, I was like, "What am I even doing here?" I'm not even a rave kind of gal. Like, I just went because my housemates had my neighbors had a party and we all walked there. And literally, I
Mm.
was in the smokers. And I was like, I'm not giving him the satisfaction of looking at him, but I could feel his eyes burning a hole into the side of my head. I was like, I'm not fucking speaking to you. But yeah, so weird. And now and then I was like looking through our old messages and that it's been 3 years, Annie. It's too long.
That's so funny. No, do you know what the actual worst feeling is? I don't know why it's so bad, but like going out and thinking you're gonna see someone, not even to get with them, but see them to look hot and make them
Yeah.
jealous. And you build
Yeah.
your entire evening around like them being there and like working your way
Mhm.
up and like feeling confident and like getting a really good outfit and they don't turn up. It's like the most crushing feeling.
Honestly, even if it's like a party or something and you think that they might have mutual friends and they might go and you don't, sometimes you might just be in their area. Like I was in Peckham the other day and there's this boy who I used to fancy who lives in Peckham and I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll say." Peckham is huge. Like he's not going to be
Yeah.
exactly where I am in Peckham, and then I was like, "You're an idiot. Like he's not going to be there." But then it's like you do think, what if, you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so difficult, isn't it? And then I do feel like it's weird. I don't know what the universe is doing, but I've bumped into my ex like
Yeah.
so many times in my life, like probably like
Ew.
5 times, and I'm like,
Oh my god, that's a
yeah, it's
lot.
weird, isn't it? I've
That's a
never
lot.
bumped into people, and it's like
Yeah.
he doesn't even live near me anymore. I bumped into him the other day. So
Yeah.
weird.
It's a London thing, like, it happens, and there's 9,000,000 people here, but then someone that you hate or someone that you fancied will get on your tube
Yeah,
carriage,
but
and you're
it's
like,
weird,
"What the
isn't it? I
hell?"
never bump into a friend. It's always him, and it's like I
Yeah.
wonder if it's because like the universe is weird and it wants you to do that
Yeah.
to you, or like whether it's
Mhm.
because you're sort of subconsciously looking for them more, or what it is. But
Yeah. Do you know what someone said to me once that like I'm not like a horoscope girl. I'm not like
mm,
a spiritual girl or anything, but someone once said coincidences are just patterns that we don't see. And I was like, "Whoa." It's like maybe there's something like some pattern, something somewhere that no one really knows what it is because
mm,
coincidences are too weird to just be a chance, you know?
yeah, yeah, I agree.
But I don't know where the patterns are. It's probably some fourth dimension shit. I don't know. But anyway, I want to know. This is a tricky question, and you don't have to answer it if it is difficult. But what did your ex say about the book, and how did he find out you were writing this book?
Yeah, well, he was kind of already used to me like writing about him, even when we were going out and stuff. Um, And like, yeah, he did like, he knew it was happening and things like that. I'm just so grateful that he let me do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's another thing. But like, there was something I think as well in like getting over the breakup in writing it, where it's like, it didn't feel like this at the end, but definitely in the beginning, like, because it kind of grew out of like, you know, when you go a bit mad and you like start writing like a love letter to get them back, well, not even to get them back, but just like you do that. I feel like it's such a cliche thing where someone's like, I'm going to write them a letter. And I wrote this like slightly deranged, like 3,000 word love letter.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was like, you know, just like memories of us going out and like, you know, in jokes and stuff like that. And I kind of guess I was kind of sending it knowing it wouldn't like make him want me back, but just like as a kind of testament to what had happened, that it wouldn't, you know, like as we were saying earlier, like the idea of forgetting all the good things is so painful. And I think writing them down made me feel a bit like it was a bit easier to let go, knowing there was like they were there somewhere. And
it's written down somewhere, yeah, and it's more it's permanent.
Yeah, and then the book kind of grew out of that. As I mean, the love letter was like a bit confusing and
a bit emotional.
Yeah, so like the book obviously, but yeah, it did begin out of me unpiecing all those memories and stuff, and like there's something that makes me feel so nice that there is like this book like a testament to what we had. That's like physical and it's there. And like I just think it's really nice. And when I did bump into him the other day, I was like, it was actually a really annoying time to bump into him because I just it wasn't a bad, like I had like no makeup on, but it was like quite a nice no makeupy day. Like my skin was good, I'd washed my hair, so you know. But like I was going to the gym and I was a bit like, you know, you kind of want to be wearing like knee boots and like a tiny little dress when you see right. So it wasn't like ideal.
Knee
boots.
Oh, hey. So specific.
So specific. Yeah, I bumped into him and then we were just chatting and he was like, it was really nice, and said that he'd read over it again and that it made him really smile. Which was really nice.
he has read it then?
Yeah, he's read it. We didn't really talk about it much, but he just was like, oh, it's really nice. And then I saw him again when I came out the gym, which was really annoying because that time I was like super sweat. I get like drenched in sweat if I do any exercise and like bright red. And then I had like these 2 huge Asda bags.
Oh
so
God.
I just went to shops, and that one was like, damn, the universe wasn't my friend that time.
Well, what is it, like yin and yang? Maybe you got a good one when you looked nice before, and then you have to have a bad one to balance it out.
Yeah.
This podcast is becoming weirdly spiritual today, and I'm literally not this kind of person.
I'm so not a spiritual person. I don't know what's going on.
I love it. A bit off track from the book. What do you love doing apart from writing?
Do you know what? Like, it's actually so embarrassing. I never talk about. Like, I'm such a gym addict now.
Really?
You know when something's like so not in your like personal brand? Because I feel like I'm a bit like, because I feel like I'm a bit messy and like love partying and stuff. Like, I would be so embarrassed if people knew how much time I spend in the gym now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten into like, I think since lockdown. Yeah, since, I used to just go to like HIIT classes, but then since lockdown I started going to like you know, like doing like squats and like weightlifting and stuff. Not like to compete, but like just lifting heavier weights.
Go you.
Because there was like during the pandemic there was this guy, it was like he'd set up like a gym. It was like a PT at the gym I go to, and he'd set up in like a marquee, like a gym, and you could pay £8 to go.
Oh, like virtually?
No, like you could just go to like, he'd literally had all the weights like in a marquee, and you could just pay to like rent it.
That's so fun.
Yeah. I don't know how we got away with it like the whole pandemic, but I used to go, I went to there a bit because like obviously there was like all the weights and stuff, and I just got more into it. And then I basically was like, oh my God, HIIT classes are way too tiring.
I mean, it's so good for your mental health, isn't it? I feel like every time I do like some exercise, it's like a drug. So
much. But then sometimes I'm like, feel like it's a bit like almost bad because I'm like, I can be in a terrible mood, go to the gym, come back and feel amazing. And obviously that is good because it's like a healthy way of dealing with things. But you know, you're like, it almost feels like you gaslit yourself into feeling okay. Like, it's so powerful how good exercising feels. They're like, I don't know, you could be so depressed about something and then be like, yeah.
It's concerning as well when you think of times that you've not exercised and you're like, is that just my normal state of being? Is totally depressed? Like, how scary.
So much.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from the gym, what else do I love? I don't know. I really like, so basic, but like just see friends. I feel like I'm a very social person, but I really need to like charge up to do it though. Like I can feel really burnt out if I've like spent too much time around people. And like I live with like my two flatmates at the minute, I get on with them so well, but it's almost like that means I'm never in my room. I'm always just like hanging out, and then I don't really notice it, but like I'll start to feel like exhausted and like grumpy, but I just want to hang out with them because they're so fun.
Yeah.
But I do need to like shut my door and be like,
Me time.
me
Yeah.
time.
Sometimes, I feel like I'm the same, because if they're home, it feels rude to go in your room and shut the door. So you have to be like, and then you have to text and be like, I'm in my room with the door shut. Like, so they don't think you're mad or something.
Yeah, completely. It's like, it's weird to draw that. It's like you have to draw a boundary, but you don't want it. It's almost like it's the same when you're in a relationship as well, isn't it? Where you really get on with someone and you can tell that you're like way too under each other's skin and you need to have a night or a couple of nights on your own. But doing it feels like so painful and like, ugh. But then as soon as you've done it, you're like, oh, like that wasn't.
It's like when they go on holiday for a week, and it's actually pathetic how much you miss them. You're like, I'm useless. And then when they come back, it's so exciting. And you like want to go to Heathrow and stuff, but you're like, no, that's so cringe.
Yeah. It's funny actually. I remember like going on one of those like girls' holidays, like when school finished, we all went to Zante. And I'd always been the only single one, like the whole of school. And like, I just remember being so excited to like go out and snog boys and like and like literally all my friends in the first like 2 hours were just like sobbing because they missed their boyfriend so much. And it was just like, come on, guys, like this is my only. But it's also so funny because like I was talking with them friends because we're still like best friends, and they were like, oh, it's so funny now. I'd be like thrilled to have like a week away from my boyfriend, but
I'd love it.
When you're 18, everyone's so like when they have like your first love or whatever, everyone's so dependent on them, aren't they?
Yeah, that's so true. And like, I mean, now it's the same. Isn't it kind of sad though that like everyone now would love a break? It's like that idea how all the old blokes at the pub are like sitting around going, oh, like so good to have time away from the missus and that. But then they get back home and they're probably just like totally whipped.
Yeah, so much. I don't know. I guess like I think when you fall in love the first time, from what I've heard, like you do sort of throw yourself into it in a way that you don't like the second time. Because like I feel like I'm almost glad that I've loved like that intensely, but I don't think it made me that happy, and I don't want to do it again. But like it's nice to have it like two peas in a pod, like partners in crime in each other's pockets, sort of thing. But
yeah, you feel reluctant when you get hurt to do it again, just because you're almost, when you're going through a heartbreak, you're almost like, was this worth it? Like, was the high as low as the low, you know? Like, is it worth doing it again? And I think now that I'm like happily single and just enjoy meeting new people, going on dates and all those things, I'm like, not the most special person would make me give this up. Like, they would have to be perfect, because I'm just thriving. I'm like, I'm not gonna just become not single for some mediocre person, you know?
Yeah, that's so nice. Actually, I was speaking to a friend the other day, and she was had seen her partner for the first time since they'd broken up.
Oh, really?
And she was like, she said something, and I was like, oh, that's just like so beautiful and nice. She was like, oh, I saw him and he looked really handsome, but it just kind of made me think like, it didn't make me think, oh, like what a loss. She was like, it just made me think like, my next boyfriend has to be really fucking handsome as well. And like, and that, like, because I think you shouldn't then go down. Like, my ex was great, which means when I go out with someone again, they need to be great as well, or greater. It's not like, it shouldn't be like I've lost that, because you can get that again. Like, you don't want to settle.
Yeah, no, that's so nice. And I wanted to get into a bit of a discussion about the book itself. So there are so many relatable feelings that you've articulated really well, I think. And it's not like any other book I've read, because you do speak about cliches in the book and not wanting to have the same experience as everyone else, which I think is such a relatable thing to say. But there are some things in there, and they feel like cliches because they were so relatable that I was like, that was lifted from my brain. Like,
oh, I love that.
Yeah, like how else would you have known that? And like, so I'll go through them, and I just would love to know more of your thought process on those. But the first one was not wanting to tell your parents about the breakup in case that your ex changes their mind and then you have to reintroduce them into your life. Because I did this when my ex from years ago cheated, and then I told my parents, and I was obviously devastated in that. And then I took him back, and then everyone thinks that you're a fucking idiot, and they don't want to be like, that's a bad idea. So they're like, well, it's your life. And you're like, no. And then obviously he did cheat on me again. So they were right. But that idea of not wanting to tell them was really universal. So I'd love to hear more
Yeah.
about
I mean,
that.
for me as well, it just kind of also just made it real. Do you know what I mean? Like, soon as you
Yeah.
said this has happened, it's like, yeah, it just confirms it. And that's really horrible. But I guess there's also a part of it, like, I try really hard with friends and stuff when they talk about like shitty things guys have done or something, to like not be, to also say, you know, when you're talking to a friend and you know the advice you're giving, they're not going to follow it and they're going to do ultimately whatever they want. Like, I always
Yeah.
make it clear, I'm like, I know you're going to do that and I'll still be here, like, here
Yeah.
if you do it. And I'm like always as well, like saying I'd probably do that as well. Like, I'd go back
Yeah.
to them, or I understand like it's so intense when you love someone, and just so
Mhm.
they know like you're still there to talk about it, even, and they're not embarrassed if they go back, because I feel like that can even be like so much more isolating. And really, if you want the person to like change, you like having a like, go at them for what they've done or like whatever just doesn't work. And I like put like a ban on my parents like being rude about not being rude, but like saying anything like critical about my ex, because like you just don't want to hear it, do you?
Yeah.
But almost to the point now where like my mum will still be like, oh, I mean, I don't want to like you know, da, da, da. And I'm like, no, mum, you can bitch about him now, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, like, to be honest, my parents still really really like him, so it's not ever really been a thing. But
Yeah.
I just was so clear, like, don't bother bad mouthing him. I won't appreciate it.
Yeah, and it doesn't make me feel good. If anything, it makes me feel like you think I have bad judgment or something. Or when people say
Yeah.
stuff like, "Oh, I never liked them anyway," it's like, what the fuck? Like, we went out for so long and you hated him
Yeah.
this whole time. That just makes me feel stupid.
I think as well, it's like you're still so in love with them, so like
Mm,
you're still really defensive of them, and like the sort of way you are with like siblings or whatever. It's like, don't say it.
yeah.
Like, I can say that, and so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't, just makes you go into like fight mode.
Yeah, literally. And then you start thinking about all the good stuff and you want to defend them. And then
Yeah, then it's like,
you're like, wait, no.
yeah.
What a bad cycle. The next one was knowing that they kept the plan to break up with you as a secret. And just the idea of that is so hurtful, because
Mm.
this also sort of happened with my more recent boyfriend last year, is that like 2 weeks before he broke up with me, I was with his housemates and one of them dumped their boyfriend, and I was saying, "Oh God, I hope my ex never, feels that way about me, but it doesn't tell me." And I saw all of his housemates like look at each other and like didn't say anything, and I was
Oh
like,
fuck.
I clocked it, and I was like, "That's so weird." And then 2 weeks later, he sent me this text and was like, "Oh, let's have a talk." And he came down from Leeds and broke up with me. And then I was thinking, like, "Did your whole house know?" And he was like, "Yeah, I've been talking to them about it." I'm like, and that is so hurtful, just to think
It's
that he was telling
yeah.
random people he just moved in with all about this. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because like there's so many things that are just confusing as well, because it's like you do kind of on one hand understand why like no one just decides to break up with someone in a day and then goes and does it. Like, of course it's
Yeah.
something that people think about, but it's like these things are still so hurtful even if they've not really done anything wrong. Like,
Yeah.
and I think you like have to make it, it's so hard when someone decides they don't want to be with you anymore. That's
Mm.
like the hurtful bit.
Yeah.
But I think because you can't get annoyed at that, like everyone's free to make that decision and leave whenever they want, you kind of find ways of being angry about like all these other things. Like, and you find them, like I, in the book, like I write about like, I just got so angry about how he hadn't come and collected his stuff yet.
Yeah.
Because that was something, even though it wasn't that annoying, it was all in a like drawer under the stairs. I couldn't even see it. And like
Yeah.
he'd already paid for like a month of rent when we both were paying it. So like, he wasn't, if anything, he like was owed to have stuff there and
Yeah.
like all this
Yeah.
stuff. But I just needed something to be furious about, because I couldn't be furious about the fact that he left me. And that is just so horrible. Like, you kind of want them to have done something really fucked up so you can like,
So you can hate them. I mean,
yeah.
even with cheating though, then I guess I think like the worst thing they could do is cheat. But then when that's
Mm,
happened and you're still really mad, but you still do feel the same, but then you feel guilty if you feel guilty for feeling the same, which I think
mm,
is maybe worse, because you're like, you're heartbroken, but then you can't believe that you still love them when they've done something so bad.
right, yeah.
But yeah. The next one I had was this quote, and this was so nice. And I don't know if it's come from another source of inspiration or have come from your brain, but it was, just because you know the name of a flower doesn't mean you understand what it is to be one. And it was the idea that people say, are you saying, oh, I got broken up with, or oh, I'm heartbroken, whatever. And that just on the surface level means they think, oh, she must be really sad. But like trying to describe how you feel, that you're drowning and you feel sick and your tummy hurts and your brain hurts, and, you know, encapsulating that into one word of heartbreak is just so pointless because it's so
Yeah.
much bigger than that. But yeah, I loved that quote. And
Oh,
what,
thank you.
what inspired that for you?
Yeah, I guess just those exact like feelings that you were just saying, like it just doesn't like words just start falling short, don't they, when you're in like a
Mm.
pain that intense. And but that's also something when I was writing the book I really wanted to like try and do as well, because like um so many books I'd read about grief and heartbreak like tend to begin like way after the fact of it. I mean, it's different because this is with grief, but I'm just meaning like something where someone's in a lot of pain. Like they'll begin like when they sort of wake up from a haze of just start crying in bed all for 2 weeks or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like, um, and I kind of wanted to try and write something that went through went through all that immediate pain as well and tried to put it into words. And I guess because it's so impossible to put into words, I kind of instead spoke about how you can't put it into words. But it was definitely something I wanted to address rather than it just skipping past that stuff,
Yeah.
because I wanted to write something when they were like feeling like that, people could read and then feel like really seen.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to say is who do you hope reads it? So what kind of person do you hope will read the book?
Oh, it's been so nice. Like I'd get loads of really cute messages from people
I bet, yeah.
saying it made them cry and like it really helped them get over something. Or like I've had quite a lot of people be like,
Yeah.
I was going to see this really shitty guy yesterday, but I didn't go because I read the book. It's like, actually, I was on the tube the other day and this woman came up to me and she was like, said she just read it yesterday. And she was
Mm.
like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, and then we were walking together because we were going the same way and we were chatting. And then she was like, I was like, oh, what are you doing tonight? And then she was like, oh, I'm going around to this guy's house. He's really toxic. She was like, oh, you must be like, she thought basically I would judge her for doing that.
Oh
And I
God.
was like, no, you go to the toxic man.
Oh, that's really
But
cool.
yeah, I just, it's been really nice knowing that it's actually got like, as well as people just reading it to like
Mm.
enjoy the story, that it also has like helped in quite a practical way, because when I was going through
Mm.
the breakup I was struggling with the fact I couldn't really read anything that kind of summed up what I was going through or felt like that.
Yeah.
Like there was so much music that I was like
Yeah.
listening to and being like, oh my God, like, you know, when you just hear a lyric for the first
Yeah.
time almost and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I'm going through. Like I kind of wanted to write something that would like do that for people, and like it sounds like a lot of people saying it has, so that's been really nice.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think that is so true that there's not much, and especially you want to read stuff from people like you. Like you want to read something from someone in their like 20s or 30s living in London who's been through this breakup. Like you want someone to embody you and tell you it's going to be okay because they're okay now.
Mhm.
When I had my breakup, I went and listened to a lot of Elizabeth Day's How to Fail, and like hearing how other
Mm.
people were failing at stuff, it made me feel like I had a friend. Then some of them, I purposely chose the ones where people spoke about failed relationships, and I was like,
Mm.
this is actually so helpful because they're just people similar to me. So yeah, I think it is a really cool tool. I love it. um, the next one I wanted to chat through was the self-blame phase, where you think about all of the little things that you did that you wish you could have changed. And like you cringe at the thought that you did this stuff. So like if you shouted at them one time a year before and you're like, why did I do that? Like, that's
Yeah.
probably what started all of this. But you can't do that stuff because you can't change anything. And also, it just makes you feel responsible, which, you know, people change their minds sometimes, and that's just life. But I thought that was a cool inclusion as well.
I think it's like as well, just like remembering that there's no like one thing that you would have done that would have made the relationship happen. You and that person become so mushed up together. It's not anyone's fault. It's like, you know, you might cringe about you know, I was constantly thinking about how I was like nagging him about like the
Hmm.
house.
Hmm.
And then but then it's like, now I look back and I'm like, you were nagging about the house because he wasn't doing enough in the house. And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe there would have been a better way of dealing with it, but it's not like one thing, you know, snapped. It's like it's thousands of different ways
Hmm.
in which turned into something that wasn't right anymore. And it's just, you can't just blame you. I feel like with breakups, I feel like you begin
Mm.
off blaming yourself
Mm.
and then you start blaming them. and then you kind of just realize it was just both of you and the
Yeah.
universe. And oh my god, back to spirituality.
But yeah, it's so like relationships and emotions are so complicated, and there's so much to them, and so many outside influences as well. And you know, how can you pinpoint one thing when it's just a constantly moving, like, organic thing? You know, that, like you said, there's just hundreds of things that go in, like little, even little things. Like sometimes you might look at the way that they're positioning their feet, and you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah,
Not like
completely.
that. The next one was the idea that we want our relationships to be different. Like our relationship was different,
Mm,
our relationship was special, and you want your heartbreak to be just as profound and just as different and just as, like, you just can't believe, and this was something I felt, you can't believe that anyone has ever felt this bad in their life. And you're like, yours wasn't as bad as this, but it probably is exactly the same for a lot of
mm.
people, you know?
Yeah, completely. Like I feel like some people get like that makes them feel a lot less alone. But for me, I
Mm,
was just could not believe that like it was so hurtful to me to think that
mm,
this was just what everyone went through, and because you can almost cope with it thinking it's special and unique and beautiful, like
mm,
this pain, because there is something almost romantic in like unrequited love or pining after someone, but then
mhm.
when you realize it's not, it's something so many people go through, it really, it's just horrible to think about.
Yeah, it's black and white. Like there's good and bad in it. Because yeah, like you
Yeah,
said, you can feel like comfort in that as well. But
yeah,
yeah,
completely. But then I also think like, why not let yourself think that it was like perfect and unique and completely different to everyone else? Do you know what I mean? Like no one does know what you and that person shared. Like you can try and say, like when I'm like talking to friends in breakups, I am very aware of and cautious about being like, oh yeah, me and my ex, and like, oh yeah, this and that, like, because I don't want to make them feel like that. And
mm.
like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if, sorry, I don't want to keep like talking about myself here, but like, blah, 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 and then sort of check in on whether it's annoying or not.
Yeah, there is nothing worse than when you are speaking to someone and then they just relate every experience back to something that happened to them. I'm so guilty of it.
Oh,
I do it all the time.
completely.
But and it's some people's way of empathizing and showing that they're feeling empathy because they're like, oh, well, that happened to me too. I did that too. But then it's also at the same time like, shut up and just let me be annoyed or sad. Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
about you.
definitely. I
Yeah.
think as well I do it in like situations like I think it's most annoying when you're doing something that you just can't relate to. Like say if a friend was like talking about like, I don't know, like not having much money growing up or something, and
Mhm.
you're like, yeah, well, like I don't get it, but like I kind of get it with it. And it's like you don't
Yeah.
get it. It's like you think in doing that you're really helping that person feel that you're with them, but it's like,
Yeah.
but all they're thinking is you're not with me. You don't get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It has the opposite effect.
Yeah.
The next one I wanted to chat about was, and this was so, I just love the book, okay? It was really good. But this one
Oh.
was like it was trying to do normal things, and when you go out like with your parents for dinner, or you go to football with some mates, or you go out for like girls drinks or something. Like my breakup was just when lockdown ended, and I feel like looking back he purposely did that so that I wouldn't have to sit in the house and cry. So which is fucked up but nice. But anyway, it's when you're trying to do normal things and it actually makes you feel worse because it feels like
Mm.
someone is shouting in your face, "Look at me while I'm talking to you," and you're trying to ignore them. But you feel this like this grief like demon on your back that's just being like, when you get home, we get to be sad again. Like it's just so scary and
Yeah.
fucked up. But yeah, I thought you articulated that really well as well too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think like you just kind of have to listen to yourself, don't you? Like if you want to sit
Mm.
and wallow, I think you need to let yourself sit and wallow. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like, you know, certain people I feel like feel guilty because like they want to go out and party or something. And it's
Mm.
like I think you can just listen to how you feel. But yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely like went through so many things where my parents would take me like to the cinema or something to cheer me up. And I was just like, I wasn't there. I felt like a sim, or like I was like
Yeah.
not actually
Like a
like
sim.
like I'd been placed there, but I was completely somewhere else. I was at home crying, and like they'd be talking to
Yeah.
me, and I just like wasn't present at
You're just
all.
like, nah. Even with work, like having stupid, because it was still when we were working from home all the time, which is also now. But I would get on work calls and like you've got clients yelling at you and like just having unreasonable demands and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't give a shit. Karen? Like, I
Yeah.
don't care right now, and you just
I'm in a
don't know what's
different
going
solar
on with
system.
me. Literally, I'm in outer space right now. You can shout at me all you want. It's going over my head. You do you. The last one that I wanted to chat with was, and I wanted your advice as well on this one for people listening, is the idea that you can let yourself imagine getting back with them in 2 years' time as a way to ease the pain. And this is something that I definitely did. And a friend said to me at the time, when the universe again, when the universe feels like it's saying no, it's either saying not right now or something better is coming. And so it was like you were allowed to believe, in 2 years you might get back with your ex, because that gives you the comfort of thinking it might happen. But when it gets to 2 years down the line, you won't care. So it's sort of an easy way to ease the pain. But I was wondering, what were the main things that helped you to get through it? And what advice would you have for listeners on easing their pain and a heartbreak?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's just one of those like annoying things where it literally is just time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anything you can do. And I think there are like obvious things you can do, like block them. I mean, to be honest, that's it, isn't it? Just reduce, don't look at them, allow yourself to cry, feel your feelings, call in all the favors with friends, like cry to them until they're bored, like use up all your friend points. But like, I also think like, as one thing that I found helped is like not, like when you do things wrong, when you do ring them when you're drunk and you stalk their Instagram or sleep with them and stuff like that, like don't get annoyed at yourself either for when you do those things, because it's like, I also think they're kind of part of the process. Like, it's very rare that people are strong enough to just completely block someone. And though that might like speed up the process of the breakup, like, I don't know, not many people have that self-restraint. And like, also sometimes you end up doing things and they do help. And even though you wouldn't expect it to, like, I definitely found like sleeping with him after we broke up, like, did help, because I think it just allowed me to have a bit of closure almost. And like, I could kind of like sleeping with him and seeing that he was still in love with me, it just wasn't right, like meant I could let go a little bit more.
Yeah, because it's not like total rejection. I think the worst part about breakups is the feeling of being rejected and not being good enough, and there's just nothing you can do about it, and you're feeling quite helpless. But when they reach out to you, or you get like an I miss you text or something like that, it sort of validates those feelings, and you know that they haven't turned into some alien that has no feelings for you, and you had a terrible judgment or something, because it humanizes them again, and you're like, oh, they're not that special. I am good,
completely. So yeah, just embrace the messiness. You'll probably make loads of mistakes, and just don't beat yourself up about them, I would say as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was really fun.
No, thank you for having me. That was so fun.
And thank you for letting me fangirl, because the book is fucking amazing. So I will put a link in the episode description for everyone listening.
Amazing.
But yeah, and where can people find you on social media?
My Instagram's like at AnnieLord8. I actually think my Twitter is as well. There's no specialness of the number 8. I think it was just like, when you sign up and then it was like the only...
That's my lucky number. That was my lucky number. Yeah, it's my basketball number when I was in school, and I was in Fiji once and they did frog racing and my frog was number 8. So I just picked it. Yeah, really cute. But,
the universe again.
Oh my God, don't! I'm going to have to change the name of this podcast to something spiritual. Love it. Thank you again.
No, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with the wonderful Annie Lord. Please let me know on my Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. I'm everywhere. If you have any stories or thoughts of your own to share, and get in touch with me through my website, it's madsworld.co. Love and elbow taps. Peace.